in the blazing heart of the Wild West, where the desert winds carried whispers of betrayal, and the mountains stood like ancient guardians of forgotten stories. A young woman named Clara found herself standing on the edge of a fate she never chose. Born the daughter of a struggling rancher, her life was not one of wealth or privilege, but of quiet endurance. Yet even that fragile existence was ripped from her hands the day her father, desperate to settle his debts with a ruthless outlaw trader, sold her as though she were nothing more than a mule or a broken wagon wheel, her wrists bound in coarse rope, her dignity traded for a bottle of whiskey and a pocketful of tarnished coins, her eyes burning with a mix of shame and silent fury as rough laughter echoed around her. Men who saw her not as a soul, but as an object, a prize to be bargained. Yet deep within her chest, a fire burned, a fire that would not let the world define her as trash. For though her body was sold, her spirit screamed for freedom, survival, and vengeance. Dragged across towns and barren trails, Clara endured the torment of cruelty, lashed words, and bruised skin, until fate intervened one dusk when the caravan transporting her was ambushed by a band of native warriors, arrows slicing through the twilight, horses rearing, gunfire cracking like thunder, and in the chaos, Clara was thrown to the ground, her cheek pressed into the desert dust, convinced her story would end there beneath a fading sun. But instead, when she looked up, she found herself staring into the fierce, yet gentle eyes of a man, unlike any she had ever seen. Tall, broad-shouldered, his hair flowing wild like the mane of a stallion, his gaze sharp as an eagle's, yet soft as dusk. His name was Kael, a warrior of the Apache, feared by his enemies, yet revered by his people. And in that moment, instead of turning away, he lifted her from the dust, his hands strong, yet careful, his voice low as he asked her if she wished to live. And though her lips trembled, Clara whispered, yes. The first choice she had been allowed in far too long. Kael took her with him, not as spoils of war, but as a wounded soul in need of fire. His people wary of the white woman in torn rags, but Kael defended her presence, saying the Great Spirit had put her in his path for a reason. And so began Clara's rebirth among the Apaches, where she learned to gather roots, ride with skill, and feel the earth beneath her feet, no longer shackled, but free to breathe. Though the scars of her past carved deep, and the name of the outlaw who had bought and beaten her still burned in her mind, fueling her desire for revenge. Nights beneath the endless canopy of stars drew Clara and Kael closer, their conversations weaving threads of trust, his steady strength a balm to her wounds, his laughter a spark that reminded her of the girl she once was. Until one night, as coyotes howled and the fire crackled, Kael brushed a strand of hair from her face and told her she carried more strength than any warrior he had known. And in his arms, she found not the chains of ownership, but the blaze of passion, a love so fierce it threatened to consume them both. Together, they became an unbreakable force. Clara no longer the girl who had been sold like trash, but a woman who burned with fire. And with Kael at her side, she vowed to reclaim her name, her pride, and her vengeance. When word reached the Apache camp that the same outlaws who had once owned her were terrorizing nearby settlers, Clara knew her time had come. And though Kael warned that revenge could cost her soul, he saw in her eyes that denying her this path would be like asking the sun not to rise. So he swore to ride with her, to protect her, even if it meant death. The night they rode out, Clara wore no dress of rags but the leathers of a warrior, her hair braided with feathers Kael had given her, the horse beneath her hooves, carrying her into destiny, her heart pounding with both fear and exhilaration. For ahead lay blood, dust, and reckoning, but also freedom. And as the desert wind lashed her face, she whispered to herself that no matter how many scars she carried, she would never again be anyone's property. Because she had found love like fire, and with fire comes survival, power, and revenge that could burn down empires. And so their story thundered forward, a tale of a woman reborn in the ashes of her suffering, a warrior who chose her not as a possession, but as a partner, and together they would carve their names into the unforgiving land of the Wild West, where every sunset was painted in blood, and every dawn promised both hope and danger, for Clara had risen, and her flame would never be extinguished.